I'm going to start with just a brief introduction of, this is Vanier College, for those of you who may not have had this experience. All of the students who come to York as undecided majors are registered with this college. The college system works that each college has affiliated academic programs. So, for example, McLaughlin College houses the political science department, so the student club for that, and all of the activities around political science are happening over at McLaughlin. For the undecided majors, that creates a conundrum because many of you are going to transition to a different program by the end of the year. That is your goal. That is what you want to do. So you should, while you're thinking about determining your major, also recognize that when you transition to your major, you should also think about transitioning to the college that houses that program. That way you will be connected to a whole new set of people, a whole new set of activities that are actually going to help sort of build on your academic choice. So just be aware of that for now you're kind of temporarily housed in Vanier, but when you go to change your major eventually, you'll want to switch to another college if that college is different from Vanier. So the colleges are really here to support you in your academic, your social life. It's the place where a lot of student clubs are active. We've got lots of activity like there's a play, there's a theater production company in Vanier. There's a whole lot of activities going on in this college. My name's Janice Newton. I'm the College Life Academic Coordinator for Vanier College, and among my jobs is to plan programming. So the flyer that we just handed out that's designed for undecided majors. We're shifting, we may end up calling you undeclared majors. But the flyer that looks like this, if you haven't got one, they're available in the back, lists a series of 6 workshops that will be run. I won't be doing all of them, but I'll be doing some of them and we'll be collaborating in doing them. But this is programming to support you in making that transition to your future program. Now, some of you are undecided because you really can't make up your mind. You want to take everything, it's all wonderful, and you just are omnivorous. You're sort of consuming everything, it's all exciting. How could you possibly make up your mind? Some of you are torn between 2 programs. You're not sure if you want this or you want that, and you're just kind of feeling it out. Others want into a program. You know exactly where you want to be, but alas, you weren't admitted to that program. And it may be because you're missing a prerequisite. It may be because your grades aren't quite high enough. So for each of you, you're going to have a different reason for being in the shoes you're in right now as an undecided major. This programming has been designed to support you in making that transition and that decision into your major. So whether it's sort of about improving your grades so you can actually get into the program you want to be in, or whether it's helping you figure out, well, where do you belong? What's you know, depending on what kind of choices you're facing with. We've developed these programs. So please put them in your calendar. We want you to show up. We want to support you. In addition, the other part of Vanier College is that we have a wonderful group of peer mentors. These are student volunteers who are in a range of programs, not just Vanier affiliated programs, and they will be operational the first week of October. If you have questions, if you're curious about a particular program of study and you'd want to talk to a student in that program of study, we will have on our website a list of all the peer mentors, including their academic background, the kinds of challenges they've faced, and you are welcome to drop into the peer mentor office to talk to that person. You can pick the person who's affiliated with a degree you're interested in, have a chat about anything, really, that's to do with your kind of life at York. But that's a wonderful support system that we really want students, especially first-year students, to take advantage of. So whether it's just that curious, so what is it like being a BUSO major, or what is it like being in admin studies, we will have volunteer students who will be available to answer those kinds of questions. But also if you get into trouble. If, you know, your first grade's disappointing and you don't know what to do, go talk to a student mentor. They're going to be trained to tell you what kind of resources are available on campus. They will have some experiences they might be able to share with you. So that's the peer mentoring program, and each of the colleges have it. At Vanier, you would have walked past it as you came in the front door. It's behind that big TV screen on the right as you come through the main doors. So the other important thing that Vanier does, and I'm going to introduce her right now, is we also have an academic advisor for undecided majors here in Vanier College. And on that note, I'm going to introduce you to April Walker. Okay, she's upstairs on the second floor. In your resource kit, you'll have her contact information. But if you need to sort of have a talk with someone about, you know, what's happening in your program, it's April who can see you. And she's here 5 days a week, yes? And I think that's all I need to say as for general introductions, but I do want to introduce a special guest who I'm very delighted could make it because I know how busy her schedule is. The Associate Dean of LAMPS has come. She has worked very, very hard in building this program for undecided majors, and I hope as you meet other UMMAs, as we call them, you will talk to them. But right now I'm going to introduce you. This is Associate Dean Diane Woody.
Thank you, Janice. So I'm here to bring a message of welcome and greetings from my boss, the Dean. He is actually really thrilled that this programming is taking place, that my colleague, Janice Newton, Professor Newton, is in charge, shall we say. Most of all, he'd be thrilled that you're here. He would say to you, you are brilliant to take advantage of the programming that's been designed. And why would he say that? He would say that because the fact that you're here means that you've already got an inkling of what's involved in a decision. This is not going to be a snap decision. You're going to, on the bus, say, you know, that's it, that'll be my program. Usually there's a fair bit of psychological prep that goes in, so you need what's called downtime for thoughts to mature, realizations to occur. It may comfort you to know that more than 50% of our students do change their major, so it's perfectly normal to have a bit of a zigzag. I see that the quote here talks about things are not linear. We don't always go directly from point A to point B. Often we have to zigzag. So the Dean's message for you would be, this is good. This is really good that you are taking advantage of these opportunities, that you will follow the program, so to speak, to become more comfortable with identifying your own strengths, because you all have them, and your own interests. Because once you can align your own strengths and your own interests, you actually have a winning formula. You have something that is sustainable and something that will allow you to feel motivated with what you do. So thank you for coming. You're brilliant.
Okay, and the next guest I'd like to introduce is Daniel. He is the head of the Student Council in Vanier, and I'm going to let him do his blurb as well.
So hey guys, a couple of you know me actually from Orientation Week, but I'm Daniel Kobalsi. I'm the Vanier College Council President, and basically what I'm here to do is help to be the voice of the students in Vanier. So we actually get to speak to many York officials, many people here actually at York, and we talk about certain issues that you're dealing with. We're really here to help you with a leadership aspect to your university experience, so your ability to actually get involved, do other things besides academics. So we provide many actual events, such as Montreal for $40. So that's enticing on its own. We have a Blue Mountain trip, which is, you know, skiing, snowboarding for an entire weekend. And we just provide opportunities for you to actually get involved and be engaged beyond just doing academics, so just going to class and coming to speak to Janice. So if you have any questions, our office is in room 120 upstairs in Vanier, and we can answer any of your other questions. Let's keep it short and sweet. Thank you.
And just to reinforce what Daniel just said about getting involved beyond your academics, I know a lot of students in first year come in with this really intense, I'm going to study so hard, The students who actually get A's tend to be the students who are also involved in other volunteer extracurricular activities. So it actually, in terms of grades, the research shows that the people who have a more well-rounded life actually perform better in university than the people who just hit the books. And that's as true at York as it is at Harvard. So it's a thing that cuts across. So let me begin. No, that's not working. That's Working. So what we're going to do today, we're going to do some exercises. It's not just going to be me talking. We've done the welcomes and introductions. We're going to start with a self-reflection exercise. So you should all have a handout available if you want to, that was on the chairs that looks something like this. If you can sort of pull that out, because we're going to be doing that first. We're going to work on that exercise. We're going to go through some theoretical methods for understanding that. We're going to talk about how these things, these exercises would connect to your program of study or possibly to a career. And then I'm going to talk about this lovely concept called planned happenstance, which can be an important part of how you make a decision about your major. So to begin with this self-reflection exercise, I'd like everybody to take a few minutes, get a pencil. If you don't have one, they should have some pens or pencils at the back. On this blank table, I want you to look at it and think of what you would describe as your main characteristics of your temperament. What are some of the main characteristics? What would we mean, maybe some secondary ones? Also talk about some of the abilities that you enjoy using, right? I don't know, musical, whatever abilities you can think of, and then ones that tend to be sort of secondary, and as well what careers you're curious about. Not just one, but what are there others that are sort of, or are you just passionate about one, that's it, and full stop. Okay, so as best you can, I want you to fill out the chart, okay? And just take a few minutes to do that. Oh, temperament. Oh, okay. Temperament is sort of almost like a personality type. So, I don't know, are you the kind of person that absolutely comes alive when you're in a crowd? That could be an example. So that's kind of an extroverted type of temperament. Are you the person who likes when you got downtime, you'd rather grab a book and go sit in your couch and curl up and read with the cat? Those would be one example of a temperament. You know, they're kind of, think of the different people you know and how they're different in their personality traits, and that would be capturing what you mean by a temperament. Do you have friends who are really good listeners and then other friends who like just jabber all the time and don't really pay attention to much of anything? Do you drive in the car and one person is noticing oh, look at the crow, look at the eagle, look at this, look at that, and another person is just focused on the road? That's a temperamental difference right there. So well, you could have things that you say, yep, this is really me, this is a really strong suit for me, but this, I have this a little bit, but not a lot, right? So, you know, am I observant? Well, yeah, but I'm probably better described as somebody who really likes to hone in and focus, and then I'm not so observant of, you know, so one is primary, one is less so. Okay, I'm sure there's more to write, and you're going to get to fill this in a little more fulsomely as the workshop continues. So, how many of you found it easy to name one or two things that you could describe as your main temperament, activities you enjoy? I bet that was an easier part. Things you like to do, or career. How many of you were able to kind of fill in at least the top row? To say, okay, all right, so you got to start there. What I want you to do now is compare your notes with someone next to you, and I want you to notice what's similar, what's different, and maybe in talking to the partner, maybe more ideas will come to you about what you are like, because they may have thought of something and you're either the same or different. So you can fill it out a little bit more, but I'm mainly looking for similarities and differences as you talk to your partner, okay? Let's report back and see what's out there in the crowd. Okay, so does somebody want to start by talking about, let's say, a temperament theme that was similar in your pairings? Where did you, when you paired up with someone, did you say, oh yeah, I'm like that too? Who had one that was like that? Yeah, what was your example? Oh, there may be some spooky, astrological influence on this. Okay, so the stubborn, let's do it my way kind of person, that's an interesting character trait. Is there anybody who came up opposite to that? Not really like that at all. Yeah? Easygoing. Okay, those would be kind of like things you'd want to juxtapose. Not everybody's going to be the same on these scores. What was another similarity that came up in your discussions? Are you all just quirky, different folk? There must have been more. Yeah. Introverted and quiet. Show of hands. I know you probably don't want to, but show of hands. How many of you were introvert, quiet, tend not to want to be out there? Okay, yeah, it's about half the crowd there. And that means the other half probably more comfortable being in the social situation. So that's a good. Any other kind of either similarities or differences that you noticed as you played this out? Some of you had long lists. I know there's more than just those two traits to talk about. Offer up some more examples from what you listed there. Striking differences as you were talking with someone. Were there things where you were really different than your partners? Because you're not going to all be the same. I know that for sure. Okay, you just all turned into introverts and you don't want to talk in public. Oh dear, yeah. Okay, okay. So one is patience and to let things flow, and that maybe reflects a little bit more easygoing. The other is, kind of a tighter scheduled kind of person. Let's get it done. That's possibly another temperament trait. I think you can see, and now what about abilities? What about the things you enjoy doing? The things you enjoy, abilities I enjoy using. You all have them, I know. So, yes? Talking? Okay. Okay, talking, listening, helping. Those are interesting abilities you enjoy using. You had your hand up. What other abilities do you enjoy using? No? No? Other abilities back there in the back row? Yes. Sleeping. Oh, everybody enjoys that. I don't know that I'd call that an ability. Although when you're awake at 4 in the morning, it is an ability, I guess. It's true. Yeah, relaxing. Yeah, okay. Not being too scheduled. Okay, yeah. Yes. Okay, active body movement, right? The use of the body is a real pleasure for you. That's a real activity. Some people would actually hate. I remember one time I picked up a friend coming out of the gym, and I told him I'd just spent an hour on the treadmill, and he looked at me and he said, "Why would you do that?" And I was in bliss. I was really happy. So people can be very different on these kinds of abilities, and those can be important things as the discussion unfolds. So what we're going to talk about is there are a number of different methods out there for assessing, we can call it your temperament, your personality type. You may have heard of Myers-Briggs. The one I'm going to use here is called Kersey, just because it's simpler to use and it's also free on the internet. And this is something that you will be able to take. We're going to give you the information how to follow up on this. It doesn't take a lot of time at all. But you will actually be able to run the survey on yourself and get the feedback from them about what personality type you are based on their psychometrics. So it's a free survey. I'm not going to do it now because we're not in a computer lab, but it will assess your personality type. It will look at those questions like what's your temperament, what are your abilities that you like to use, and then line them up, map them to what career possibilities would actually fit who you are, right? Because I think a lot of students, and I've been teaching for way too long, a lot of students I've met in first year often are here and they don't really know how they got here or why they're here. Their friends came to university, so they knew they had to follow suit because they wanted to still hang out with their friends. Their parents said, if you don't go to university, I'm kicking you out of the house. I've heard that one. I will no longer support you unless you stay in school. And often it's that, well, my dad, my brother, my uncle, my sister, whatever, they're all lawyers, therefore I must follow that path too. So they choose a career path because it's what they are familiar with. They know people who are doing that, but they haven't really investigated what the other options are. And that's what we're about to investigate today. And they haven't really thought deeply about the question of, who am I? And which of these possibilities, and there are many out there, would be a really good fit for who am I? And in part, university is structured in a way that helps you kind of discover the answer to that question. Some of you may come in already knowing it, but chances are, as Diane Woody said, you're going to change your mind. And you're going to change your mind because the experience of being here is going to transform you. So the question of who are you, what at core are the things that really rock your boat? That's what we're going to look at today. So according to the Keirsey temperament sorter, there's 4 types of people out there, okay, that are on a spectrum of different personality types. And the first one, and some of you, I think, from your answers might fit this. So as we're talking about this, I want you to reflect on yourself, reflect on the answers you gave so far, and ask yourself, is that a good description, more or less, of kind of who I am? So the artisan is the type who lives for the moment. They're spontaneous, they act on impulse, they feel quite comfortable taking risks, they like the really high roller coasters and are not scared by that. Others would be terrified. They like to make an immediate impact. They want to see the impact of their action right now. They're not good at those things that take forever and it's, 5 weeks from now you'll see the outcome. They want the outcome to come immediately. So those would be character traits or temperament traits. Example of the kind of abilities, they'd be strong problem solvers because of course they're not afraid to take risks. They're going to jump in and solve that problem. They've got that sort of ability that they like. They're good negotiators. They're going to sort of interact with people to sort stuff out. Respond in crisis situations. You can see how those abilities are matching with the temperament. And they tend to be resourceful. They tend to be the one to look around and say, okay, what can we use here to make this happen? That's one. We'll call that the artisan type, or at least this particular model calls it that. The second type is the guardian type. And this, the watchword is their planning and reliability. They're the ones who are going to get the job done. So they tend to be very practical, very realistic, down to earth. They like a clearly defined task. They're going to value structure, stability, security, tradition, the sense of affiliation. Those are their sort of personality characteristics. Their abilities are going to be, they're very loyal, they're punctual. You can count on them. That's your friend who's always going to be there, when they say they're going to be there on time with whatever needed done. They're going to be detail-oriented. They're going to be very organized. They'll know how to kind of organize to get things done. And they'll be able to successfully complete tasks and meet goals. So it's a very different personality type from the artisan that we just talked about. The idealist, that's the person who foremost want to be true to themselves. So they're the more sensitive, supportive, emotional. They value authenticity, personal growth, live by their own values. I have a friend who fits this description to the T. She was just this in spades. Tended to be always optimistic, always enthusiastic. There was always going to be a good outcome. And her abilities was she was a great conflict resolver. She often would put herself in the middle of conflicts between friends and try to sort it out, divorcing couples, yikes, where she would step in and want to resolve those conflicts, want to negotiate that. Very strong written and oral communication skills, very articulate and thoughtful, and often would make a catalyst for change. She actually did that in her life, made a huge difference in a significant area in her life. noticing a problem, and then she acted with sympathy and with empathy, acted to make a change. So that's the idealist that foremost cares about, be true to yourself and your values. The rational person is more do it right. And I read this and I thought, I was wondering if Mike Holmes will be an example of this. I know that's his slogan, but I'm not sure. I think a better character for this would be Sheldon on The Big Bang Theory, right? I think Sheldon is this kind of guy, right? So his character, he's analytical, yes, independent, self-critical, works with theories and abstract ideas. Yep, that's Sheldon. He seeks complexity and challenge. He's right in there trying to solve the problems. And his abilities are obviously logic, systematic, strategic. He's good at critical thinking, analytical skills. He can see the big picture, especially in physics, you have to see the big picture. And a very, very precise in the use of language. So I think as an archetype, I think Sheldon is kind of a classic, rational type of person. So this model of there's these 4 different types is actually based on sort of juxtaposition of character types. And there's sort of 4 character types, and we already raised them because already you mentioned them in talking. So they're kind of opposites of each other. You're sort of usually one and not the other. So the extrovert, that's the person who really likes to be expressive. That's very different from the introvert who tends to be more attentive and inward looking. The sensing, that's the observant person, the person who's taking it all in and watching and taking it all in, versus the person who's more intuitive and introspective, who's more thinking it through from inside themselves rather than out there taking in the world out there. Those are very different personality types, very different traits. The thinking type of person, the really tough-minded, the person who's going to say, we need to do it this way because this is what the research says, so let's do it this way, right? As opposed to the person the tough-minded, I think, sometimes can hurt people's feelings because they don't care if it's done nicely. They care that it's done according to what's logical. Whereas the opposite of that is the person who's more sensitive to people's, who's got moving more by how they feel as opposed to how they think. And they would be the person that you would probably find more friendly, more approachable, right? So those are opposite poles. And then the judging, that's the scheduling, the organized kind of person, judging, scheduling, as opposed to the perceiving, which is the opposite. So one is making a judgment, the other is perceiving. That's more curious, more fluid. Let's probe, let's see. Maybe it doesn't have to be just this one way. Maybe there isn't one right answer. Maybe let's probe. There might be multiple ways to look at this. The judging person is going to land on one. The perceiving person is going to play out all the possibilities. Very different character traits. Okay, so the backdrop to those 4 archetypes that we talked about is really rooted in these character types, which are kind of opposites. So I want to circulate, April, if we can hand out the second handout, so people can, April's going to hand that around. And as that's going around, I'm just going to sort of comment some qualifiers about these very big, broad generalizations. Each of us have some of these traits. Each of us has a little bit of everything in us. It's just that in some of us, one is more dominant than the other, right? So don't assume that you can only be one. You will have both. You will be able to do both, but one may tend to be more dominant than the other. Here's the interesting thing. So do your professors and your TAs. So this is really cool. If you can wrap your head around this, if there are these personality types, and I'll tell you at the end how you can kind of take advantage of this. If you can understand, let's say your professor is the, if you can understand that they're the guardian type, that want you to get things done on time, that have everything planned out ahead of time and they're, you know, laid out, that's telling you something about how you need to interact with that person to make them happy, right? If they're more the idealist, be true to yourself. If they're communicating that kind of a thing, that's telling you something about, you know, the nature of that person that you're interacting with. So it is something that you can think about in relation not just to yourself, but also the other people you're interacting with. And there is a link, which I'll give you at the end, that you can go to that will tell you, if you think you know the personality type of your tutor or your professor, how can you use that to better respond to their expectations, to change what you do in the classroom. So that's a useful tool to have. But we really need it to understand, foremost, to understand ourselves first. And I think most people at the age of, 15 to 20, they're not clear about 21, 22. This is an emerging project. And I can confess, even at, my ripe old age, it continues to be an emerging project over the course of your lifetime, but particularly at your age, as you're just entering adulthood, you've finished high school, a lot of these questions still are open and in flux. So you need to be have your feelers out, to be asking yourself continually, so who am I really? How can I understand myself better? And university is structured to help you do that. The whole way, I know some of you find it annoying that we have prerequisites and we have, the gen ed requirements, those 9 credit courses that you have to take, and then you've got electives and you're forced to take electives, and what's that all about? Well, the role of electives and the gen eds is to push you into experiencing new things. Something beyond just the tunnel vision of one program of study. And a lot of, like Dan Whitty said, if 50% of students are changing their minds, sometimes they're changing their minds because they took an elective that just changed their world. Okay? So you need to see all of those courses as, you need to be open to, what is this course going to teach me about myself, about what I like, what I don't like, and be aware that that may in fact end up being a transformative experience for you. And then, of course, the other question is your program of study. If you are in, let's say, political science, I've had this experience, this is one version, but it's happened many times over with students who come in for advising, and they're taking a course in public law, and I say, well, you got really crappy grades there. What was going on? Well, really don't like that. I don't really like that stuff. I don't like law. It's kind of boring. What do you want to do? Oh, I want to be a lawyer. And I'm thinking, if you don't like the program, you're not going to like the career. So that student was an unreflective about, who am I? If I'm not up late at night reading those books on public law and excited about them, I'm not going to make a good lawyer, because that's what lawyers do. So you need to be listening to yourself as you're taking these programs of study to figure out, is this rocking my boat or not? Is this where I want to be? And trust me, I absolutely love it when I see 3rd and 4th year students who have chosen their program of study and it's something obscure and quirky, like, I don't know, classical studies, and I'm thinking, wow, students take that these days still? And their eyes light up and they say, I love it, I fell in love with my discipline. That's the experience you're going to be looking for when you choose your program of study. Okay, but in 1st year, you're now shopping. So you have to be open to those experiences and to the new possibility that something other than what you thought was on your plate is gonna emerge and entice you and draw you in. And that means you have to not only seek out, but you have to welcome those new experiences. Don't treat them as, I only want to do this and nothing else matters. It all matters. It all, be open to those new experiences and let them teach you about yourself. Good or bad, it's going to tell you something about yourself, and that's important. And at the end of the day, it's your job in university is to find the program that fits you, right? And it may not be some abstract, like I say, I'm in political science, so I know often it's students, they want to do law, and then they'll find something else that lights them up halfway through the poli-sci degree and change directions. And be aware that that can happen. Be prepared to fall in love. That's all I'm saying, right? And it's literally is like love. It's, love at first sight often is problematic. You have to really spend some time with a person before you really deeply know how you love them. Same with the discipline. right? You may start out thinking, hey, I want to do this degree, but once you get to know the degree, you decide, no, I don't really like it so much. So you have to be aware, continue to keep that self-awareness, and don't continue to drag your feet in a discipline that isn't right for you. So how does this connect to careers? As you might, so the handout you just got explains, I should flip this out, explains, if you look across the chart on the bottom, on the far right, it links those different character types to temperament characteristics to possible careers, right? So I'm going to strongly encourage you so what you can see there are perhaps some ideas of careers that you may not have thought of, but that might be a good fit for your temperament. And I encourage you to kind of put them on the back burner as, oh, there's other possibilities I might want to think about, okay? Depending on your, and like I say, at the end, you can go home and do the Keirsey test to find out. You have your hunches now, I suspect, about which character type you are, but I invite you to do the test and actually take a look then at what they say about other possible career options. So I'm just going to, it's there in writing, but for the artisan type, and again, this is the person who's, you know, spontaneous, act on impulse, likes to solve problems, comfortable taking risks. So that's police officer, paramedic, banker, surprisingly, but I guess they do take risks. Journalist, teacher, because you really have to think on your feet as a teacher, public relations. There's all kinds of careers there that sort of match that personality type quite beautifully. Probably a guardian wouldn't be a good fit for those careers necessarily, right? The guardian type is the person who's going to be organized, planning, getting things done. So the engineer, pharmacist, doctor, social worker, paralegal, those are examples that are a good fit to the guardian type of personality. The idealist, and I actually found this really interesting because I thought the connections were interesting. So the idealist, that's the one that's be true to yourself. That's going to be a great, you know, counselor, right? Think of how those personality traits are going to be a good match for sort of addiction counseling, right? Somebody who really believes in yourself, be true to yourself. They're going to be great in that kind of thing. Human resources, recruiters, career planners, they're going to be good in that kind of job. Writers, right? Fabulous connection to that kind of personality type. And then finally, the rational one, that's the hardcore thinking, the Sheldon type. So they could be a management consultant because they can deliver the bad news, right, without thinking. We see the evidence, this is what you should do. They're not going to have that touchy-feely thing worrying them. Psychologists can look beyond the emotion to see what's going on. Interesting map. Anyhow, you get the other traits. So this stuff does link to career. And there's another kind of flourish to this that I'm going to take to another level. I'm going back to the temperament groups, and there can be different types of different types within those larger groups, and that's because those. I don't know. Can you see this? Is this legible from your distance? I don't know. Okay, so you may, for example, under let's say the guardian category. There may be the person who's a supervisor type, and they're going to be extroverted. They're going to be sensing, so that's the observant, looking for things. You can see why that would make a good supervisor. They're going to be thinking, right, rationally processing what's going on, and they're going to be judging, making decisions, schedule, getting things done. But a guardian could also be a very different kind of guardian under the protector role, which would be more introverted, still sensing, feeling, judging. So you can have variants of those different traits mixed up. And if, April, you can hand out the third handout. You've got now a range of different careers that match to those different personality types. Okay? So I want you to take a look at that form. And I'd like everybody to now go back to your original list and reassess, based on what you see here, Are there things you can add to your list that you might be curious about? Are there now new career curiosities that you could add to your list based on this more fleshed out description of temperaments and types? So if you thought yourself to be one type, an artisan, a guardian, whatever, go look at the subtypes and see, are there other career possibilities that now you might want to be curious about? Okay. Are there any questions from this part? You understand how the process is working? That they're reflecting on the different elements of personality type and connecting it to jobs that actually take advantage of that. So that's where there's a good fit. Okay, okay, no, you all don't want to talk about your choices. Okay, all right, we'll move on. Sorry. Okay, the next thing I'm going to talk about is planned happenstance. And this is to underscore something that Diane Woody said, but, and I will give you a link to this because it's actually a pretty wonderful tool in thinking about choosing a program of study and a career. Planned happenstance, it really challenges my opening quote that said, you know, education is not linear. And how do you plan for that? If stuff's just going to come to you, you hear people's stories. There's wonderful stories. One of the resources I will give you is from a psychologist who, as a student, he was poor and he couldn't afford to go to the movies. So, because he had no money, he went to a free talk. And it was the only thing going on in town, and he wanted to get out of, and it happened to be Carl Jung that he heard speaking, and it was something to do with spaceships. And it changed his life. Completely changed his life. He redirected his studies, he found a career, and he's now like world famous in the research that he's doing. But it sprang from that one serendipitous thing. So the question is, how can you build your life for that kind of serendipity to make a difference for you? Like, if I tell you that story, it sounds, well, it just happened, like, you know, lightning strikes. What can I do about it? But in fact, planned happenstance is a way of thinking about making those experiences happen for yourself. And it's a four-part thing. It's simple. First, you have to clarify your ideas. You have to follow the things you're curious about. So that handout that I just gave you would have opened doors to new things that you would have maybe have not thought about up to now. And you need to be curious about those, and you need to kind of clarify which ones you're curious about and which ones you're not, but be aware to sort of nurture and foster that curiosity, even if you know nothing about it. When that man went, and I can't pronounce his name, that's why I'm not doing it, but when he went to hear Carl Jung, he didn't want to hear about flying spaceships. He just wanted to not be bored. But yet, it changed his life. So fostering your curiosity, and as you're doing that, realizing this one rocks my boat, this one doesn't, clarify that for yourself is really important. Second, remove the blocks. Stop saying to yourself, I can't do this because. Whether it's to do with, I can't do this because I haven't got enough money, I can't do this because I don't know anybody like me who's done this. Except you got to just get those blocks off your table. I have a wonderful student from political science who came to speak at York. He's a grad from our program. He came to York. He was a student from Jane Finch. Came on a special scholarship because his family had no money. His mom was a single parent refugee, that she came with no money at all to support his education. But he worked hard in high school, and he earned he was in a transitional program to get into York that gave him a lot of academic support. They did programming like this for him. So he attended that stuff, he went to it. He fell in love with political science, like literally that was, and he really loved it, and he kind of thought maybe he could go to law school, right? Now think in this second point, the remove the blocks. If he was a blocked kind of thinker, he would say, well, I couldn't do that because I got no money, and how could I, and I couldn't do that because I don't know anybody who's gone to law school, and I couldn't do that because no one in my hood goes to law, and you know, think of the blocks he could have had in his head. And instead, he removed the blocks. You know what he did? He went over to Osgood. He was a black student, and he walked up to every black man he could find in the halls at Osgoode, and he said, I want to go to law school. How did you do it? That's what he did. That's what I mean by removing the blocks. That you just change the way you think. You don't think about all those negatives. You think about, how could I make this happen? And he invented something there that was pretty darn cool, right? And took a lot of courage. But that's removing the blocks. He had that positive attitude. He did go to law school. I just have to tell you the end of the story. He did go to law school. He did an MA in England. And he came back to New York, and he qualified for the New York Bar. And he's now working for, he was working for one of the major law firms in New York City. And he's now branched out, and he started his own venture capital business, supporting nonprofit companies in Africa. He's amazing. Like, this is amazing. And this is like, I don't know, 12 years after he graduated from York. This is his life. He's an extraordinary young man. But so you can do that too, right? He started out with not much, you know, going for him, and you can imagine all the ways that he would think negatively about what were his possibilities, but he removed the blocks, and that's really important. Change the way you think. How can I? Not why couldn't I? Expect the unexpected, and this is a lovely one. Be prepared for the serendipity of life. Welcome it with open arms. When you were reading this sheet, and you might have saw something and thought, I never heard of that, why would I do that? Like, that's the serendipity. Get curious, follow through, have conversations with people. Have coffee with people. The conversations that come up in those moments can be life-altering. Just be open to the serendipity, to those chances, new experiences. Welcome them, take them on, go to workshops, go to talks. You know, you will never, I know you all feel incredibly pressured and busy, but trust me on this, you will never have more free time than you do now to explore new things. You just won't. And the lovely thing about university is it's all there, like it's low-hanging fruit. You just have to pick up the flyer and go to the workshop, go to the talk, go hear the speaker. Take advantage of those opportunities because, like I say, they can be life-altering. And then finally, take action. You know, identify where you need to learn new skills. Go to the workshops. We've got a writing center on campus that you can get one-on-one help with it. Figure out the skills you need for the things you want to do, and go take the workshops to do them. Those are really important. You got to act on. You can't just kind of let it hit you. You got to then take the next step, which is make a decision about what you're going to do now to make a difference. So, you know, like that student who, his action was go to Osgoode. He was thinking, oh, I can't go to, he goes to Osgoode and he asks. And he didn't think black students could go to Osgoode. He just didn't think that was going to work for him. That was one of his big concerns. He went, he did it. So he's not only being curious, he took action. And that made a huge, huge difference in his life. Follow up on those chance experiences to make them happen. You can't, they're not just going to come to you, you have to actively go out and seek them out. And that's what they call planned happenstance. If you've got this in your mind that you are going to clarify your ideas, you're going to remove the blocks, you're going to expect the unexpected, and you're going to act on them, and that's your drill, then you will make progress on being creative and finding what really rocks your boat in terms of your academic studies. So I'm gonna wrap it up now. We're shutting down a little bit earlier, but I want to leave you with some important information. So first, what are the York resources you could tap into as you're deciding your major this year? Obviously, one of them is come to the future programs, because they won't all be like this. They're going to be different, and each one is targeted to move you through the stages. But first, if you're curious about a program, this is, remember, curiosity, take action. If you're curious about a program, go talk to the advisor in that program. Every single academic program has an advisor that's in the program, whether it's the undergraduate director or the program coordinator or an actual staff member in that unit. So you start by calling whatever the department is, call the department and say, I'd like to speak to an advisor. Go in and have a chat. What are your questions? Plan your questions ahead of time. What kinds of requirements do I have? How could I get them? And again, keep that mindset of it's not that I can't do it because, it's what can I do to get there? That mindset's really important. Second, our lovely April Walker, who is handing out the sheets. She is the UNMA advisor. You can come and talk to April, who can help you work through some of these issues. And then in addition, I'm actually really excited about this. I think this is awesome, and this is an opportunity that would be invaluable. We have Career Center booklets at the back. April, could you grab a bunch, and do you mind? On page 11 of the Career Center handbook, they have an actual assessment game. So two actions you could do right now is go home and do the Kiersey profile and really figure out who you are. Right now we weren't sure, we were guessing. Do it, you know. I did it last night, it's kind of fun. There's other ones that we'll suggest as well. But at York, they've actually got a game that York invented and that they, you know, offer. They offer one a month. They only allow, I think, 40 people in. It's a 3-hour workshop. It sounds like fun. And it's called Who Am I? And it's run through the York Career Center. So don't think of the Career Center as just the place you go by the time you graduate and what do I do with your degree. They actually will help you at this stage in your career. And I think it would be very useful to take that workshop. I'm going to strongly encourage you that you reach out and and the next one is October 20th, but like I say, they offer them once a month. And you have to be there for the whole thing. Like, it's important to participate in the whole process. They also do one-on-one consulting that isn't just about careers, but it's about the question of, so you're confused, you think you want to do this, you think you want to do that, you're not sure. They'll do a 20-minute intake, and then they can go on and schedule other interviews. So that's a fabulous resource for you. And I've included the web address there, so you can simply go and look it up. They're in McLaughlin, on the second floor of McLaughlin, top of the stairs. And then if you should want to follow up beyond that, you can reach out to me if you want to. We're not done yet. I got just only a few more things. The second thing in the Career Center is, that was the one-on-one. Additional resources I've given to you on the handout, which is the Kiersey, which we've done. Finding Success at School, that's the one where if you want to use this to think about your prof or your TA and how you can sort of use this knowledge about yourself and others to improve your performance. There's a similar kind of test called the Young Typology Test, also free, also you can do it online. Might be fun to do them both and see if they agree or disagree. And then I'm going to highly recommend the person who I said, went to the Jungian talk and then it changed his life. And he's now famous. That's the Flow, the Secret to Happiness. That's a video on YouTube, which you are welcome to go look at. The Planned Happenstance is a website also to do with careers. And the two quotes that I've been using now for this workshop are from Ken Robinson's book, Out of Our Minds. It's all about learning to be creative. It's a fabulous book. So before you leave, I want you to complete the evaluation form, and I want to really thank you for coming here. You've obviously taken a step to have a new experience, and I hope it's been worthwhile for you. And I will stay around if any of you want to have a conversation before we wrap things up. But if you could fill out the green form and just leave it on the table on your way out, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for coming.